So thank you for registering for this awesome event we're going to have on Sunday, Monday, Transforming Ontario's Electricity Sector. This is this call will review the booklet and how to find the information. If you lose it in your emails, it is available online. So you can go directly to canada.citizensclimatelobby.org or just Google Canada Citizens Climate Lobby and you will get to the webpage. It is right in the middle. This uh, our 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 picture here, you just click on it, it will go to the page, and everything you need to know is here, including our booklet, which I am going to review. So, you may have noticed that we had a little bit of a snag, or you may not have noticed, but it is important to notice if you ever want to do an event at Queen's Park. This is our third event at Queen's Park, and we did not know that MPPs are not allowed to be co-hosts for these sorts of events. We just got told yesterday afternoon. So we had to undo everything on the website, the booklet, absolutely everything. And we'd already sent the booklet to the printer. So yeah, so for your future reference, breakfast co-hosts can only be NGOs, even though you do need an MPP sponsor. So that's why you may have noticed that MPP Jamie West has disappeared from everything. He is not even allowed to give like introductory comments or welcome. He can't even say welcome. He can't even go to the podium and say welcome. So we've had to take him off the agenda as well, which is kind of awkward, having to phone his office to tell him all this had happened. So this is our conference booklet. We're in a climate emergency. There's no doubt global temperatures are far above normal, and the wildfire season has already started in Alberta. We need to act now. And against this backdrop, the Ontario government is gearing up for long-term investments in electricity supply right now. And for the second time in less than half a year, we are returning to Queen's Park to expand our advocacy for energy and climate policies and plans that pave the way for a sustainable future. Look at all our partners. That is just amazing. I am so honored to have worked with all these people. Our conference facilitator is Vanessa Fior. She is a graduate of the environmental program at the University of Ottawa and currently working for an EV company. She's been lobbying with us since she was 16 years of age. She's a fearsome little lobbyist, and she's great to work with and an excellent facilitator. Keep your eyes on Vanessa. Our guest speakers include Evan Wiseman from the Atmospheric Fund, Dr. Jane Pritchard, both a member of CAPE and Citizens Climate Lobby, and Maggie Fu, who's been lobbying with us since she was 11 years old, and she is now 16. Please arrive at Queen's Park by 7 a.m. With 55 people trying to get through security, I think we should all give ourselves that time to get through security. And remember, photo ID is required to get into Queen's Park. And if you've ever been through airport security, that's what it's like when you go there. I highly recommend do not bring your favorite penknife. It will be confiscated, and we've seen that happen. And in fact, avoid bringing any sort of buttons in general. They will confiscate, and flags or anything that looks remotely political. So this booklet has a table of contents, and you can click on all of these in the PDF and they were to get to them. So there will be a land acknowledgement to kick off the day, as we kicked off this meeting. And the reason why I'm reading this is just to get us all in the same page and at the same mindset. And if media is there, and it has been invited repeatedly, although we don't know if they're showing up, as we all sort of trying to say the same things, then that message will be driven home at the end of the day. So we're thanking all the MPPs for being here today, to all of our partner organizations for their participation, and to everyone in attendance for your time and your dedication and your passion. If you're here, it's probably because you're concerned about the effects of climate change and how our actions are making the situation worse. The youth today are particularly concerned because they need to be able to see a livable future, and that's not always easy. their parents and grandparents' generations who see the damage that climate change is causing and want to do better, sometimes blame themselves for what is happening. It's so much more complex than that, and there's no need to feel guilty. We're here to collaborate. We're here to talk about solutions together. That is why we are here today. Now, Jeffrey, I slightly reworded it. I hope you're okay. Okay. And these are the conference organizers: myself, Lynn, Mary Blake, Michael Adamson, Doug Pritchard, Jeffrey Levette, and Guy Hanchett. And if we ever do an event in the future and you want to be on the organizing committee, just tell us. Know that we do all of our organizing with 0 emails, right, guys? 0 emails. Can you imagine? No, I get 500 digital pings a week, and I don't need any more. So we meet regularly. This is a project that has been, I think, in the making since June. And we did our first little run in September, and we began organizing the day after. Like, so thank you everyone who has been involved in this. And then we got really organized right after COP28, once we kind of had a lay of the land and knew what the Ontario government was doing. So this is the schedule of events. There's training the night before. Note that you don't, if you're not into socializing, you don't need to arrive at 6 p.m. sharp. It does say begin gathering, okay? And it says, then we begin preparing at 6:30. So if you just want to arrive at 6:30, that's great. But no, we will be starting at 6:30 sharp. And there'll be lobby training. We'll talk about the laser talks. We'll be designing motivational interviewing schedule, and we'll also review the lobby schedule and what it's like to lobby at a breakfast. And then this is the breakfast. It will be a soft start to the official speeches. That means we don't know exactly when it will happen. We want critical mass in the room. We think it'll happen around 8:05 a.m. approximately, given what the agendas of some of the key people that we want in the room. I mean, key MPPs that we want in the room. But we're going to wait until we know we have the MPPs we want in the room to do this 15 minutes of Evan speaking, and Dr. Jane Pitchard and Maggie Fu. And there also will be these little snow persons everywhere. So take pictures and have fun, because that will make, okay. Yeah, so yeah, it's just when we design events, we like to be audacious, bold, and collaborative. So we were, and it's audacious to put up these little goofy little snow persons, but it's kind of, some of them are beautiful, most of them are ugly, but that makes them beautiful. And they're fun, and yeah, and collaborative. I mean, look at all these organizations collaborating together, and we're being audacious. We're going to our government and saying, nah, no fossil fuel infrastructure on our time and dime, okay? Not on our watch. That ain't happening. So Mary Blake put this together. If you've never been to Queen's Park, this is the back area over here at Wellesley, where you see that big, huge park looking area. And here's the front with that beautiful entrance with the big steps and everything. And you enter to the left of the big stairs, and you enter in through the bottom floor, and you pretty much just, once you get through security, which is like the airport, you just go over to the right, and the cafeteria is just near this, like these set of stairs, but across the hall. Sorry, not the cafeteria, the dining hall. We will be meeting immediately afterward at the dining hall, which is a little bit more over here. So anyways, not the dining hall, the cafeteria. It's just a debrief for anybody who has time. So Mary Blake was so kind, even though none of us drive in downtown Toronto and not had a clue on how to do this. Mary Blake gave instructions on how to get to the subways and possible ways for you to find parking if you are driving into the downtown. And you can just click on these. And this is the most important part. If you only understand one thing in this booklet, it's this right here, our ask. Okay, so I'll read each one by one, and then you can ask questions if that's okay. So in light of the recent reports, did I forget to hit record? I did. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Okay, in light of the recent, okay, I'm going to start that. Oh, it is recording. Okay, it is
I
recording.
think it started.
Yeah, it did. Okay, I
Yeah.
psyched myself, totally psyched myself because I'm just so pumped because this is so amazing. Like this is tons of research, tons of super smart people put this together, i.e. Jeffrey, Michael, and Doug. Um, they put this together in light of recent reports by the RBC, you know, the biggest funder of fossil fuel pollution on the planet, the RBC Climate Action Institute, the Dunsky Energy and Climate Advisors, and the Sustainability Solution Group pause the expansion of methane-fired electricity generation and commence winding down its use to standby peaker plants only. The word pause is deliberately diplomatic because we're nice, right? But any questions on this?
Do you know, I can look this up elsewhere, but the expansion of the Portland's plant, is it happening or not happening?
I'm not able to follow the
Okay.
actual minutiae of this, but maybe Angela or Jeffrey have a
Yeah,
better.
I'll look it up.
Actually, you got two experts right in the room right now.
It is
Get it.
it is happening, and it's listed as contract entered into in the IESO's documents, and they're in fact going through their what Ontario calls an environmental assessment right now.
So is there anything we can do?
It's maybe I'll leave that to Angela. It's pretty late in the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, I went to their public comment thing and I put my questions in and they didn't answer any of my questions and they said they would answer them later, but they didn't.
Well,
Elizabeth and Jeffrey and everybody, I'm sure you know about the group Terra, Elizabeth, Toronto East End Residents for Renewable Energy. So they are organizing around this. Jeffrey's part of that, right? And they are, you know, they're trying to get Edmonton or Toronto City Council to agree to a meeting, like some of the progressive local politicians in that Riverdale riding, to meet to talk about how they can continue to pursue this. We, with the Ontario Clean Air Alliance and Terra and other groups, we're also calling on the federal government to impose restrictions through the clean electricity regulations. Doesn't look like those restrictions are going to be strong enough to restrict Ontario, but we're still working on those. So like there's various angles that groups are still working on. It hasn't been contracted yet. It hasn't been built. Individuals are continuing to organize and groups.
Thank you.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's in the docket, but there's no contracts out. Is that basically?
I thought I'd seen in an IESO document about the procurements that they listed it as in the contracted part, but the IESO is not very clear about how they present those charts. So
yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, it hasn't been built yet. Like,
right.
There's a new turbine that they're planning on building. Is that not, that's right, Jeffrey?
Yeah, it's basically scheduled maintenance that would have happened anyways, but they're swapping out a turbine in the existing infrastructure.
Great question, Elizabeth. Any more comments or questions on that point? Because I wanted to just ask everybody one question before I move on to the next. Does anybody want to take a stab at defining what a standby peaker plant is only? Just so I know what it is, but it's nice to hear it in other people's words. So anybody want to?
Oh, I can try that. I went to the meeting about it. So when we can't supply our grid using the nuclear or the hydro or the wind or the solar for all the various reasons, then we have these gas-fired generating places, a few of them around Ontario, and they were built and expected to operate for something like 2 hours a day or a week or whatever, but they've been operating much, much more than that. So we want them to go back to only operating in that standby mode when we can't supply our grid with all the clean ways.
Perfect. I love it when other people say it. That's great. Anybody want to add before we move on? Okay. Our second, well, we're asking for all of the above. There's no picking and selecting. This is our ask, is these three things. But our second point of our ask is expand and accelerate the procurement of electricity from renewable resources while lifting the moratorium on offshore wind power. I just want to, it's implied that, of course, there will be the proper consultations and environmental assessments. We just didn't put that there, okay? Negotiating increased power transfers from Quebec, and pursuing more conservation, demand management, and distributed energy networks.
Can I just add two things?
Yeah, please, Elizabeth.
So I met with our finance minister, and he told me that the problem with the middle part there from Quebec is that Quebec won't agree to give us base power. They would agree once in a while, whatever, but they wouldn't agree to give us base power. And he's the finance minister, so I would hope he knows what he's talking about when he says that.
Elizabeth, that's good intel.
Could I add?
Yeah, please do.
So Quebec, when like I just the conservative government, it's in their interest to make us believe that Quebec won't sell us base load or even more peaker power or storage, because the Conservative government is representing the large Ontario utilities, which are gas and nuclear utilities, OPG, Enbridge, TC Energy, Bruce Power. They're not representing lower the taxpayers in terms of lower cost power. So they're, Quebec water power imports are the competition. And if we could import large amounts of water power and storage from Quebec, there would be no reason to be rebuilding Pickering or building new SMRs or doubling the size of the Bruce nuclear station or building out more gas plants in Ontario. And they're representing those interests that want to create those jobs and maintain those industries. But Quebec, like when Doug Ford was first elected, a month later, Premier Legault came to Ontario with the express purpose of lobbying Premier Ford to purchase more of their Quebec water power and storage. And Doug Ford said no thanks. And they've continued to say no thanks. And they've just now negotiated an exchange for a relatively small amount of peaker power exchange between Ontario and Quebec. And we support that. And we encouraged that all along and been lobbying for that. But there's much more opportunity to import a lot more power. And really where we need the power is less about base load and more about peak power needs, and Quebec peaks in the winter and Ontario peaks in the summer. And that's when Quebec has massive surplus renewable water power and storage from Quebec is in the summer. And that's when we need the peak power. So he's giving you a line when he says, there's no opportunity for more imports from Quebec. And even the IESO has done all the studies about how much we could import from Quebec using existing transmission lines, and if with relatively small modifications or upgrades to the transmission lines, we could import a lot more. So there's no restrictions from the IESO's point of view in terms of importing a lot more, and Quebec still have this massive surplus, and that's partly because they were expecting to be selling their surplus water power and storage to the New England states, the Northeast United States, and they have been unsuccessful in building the transmission lines to the states. That's why they have massive surplus. And on top of it, Quebec announced in recent months that they are going to be building out a lot more power as, increased demands in the future as we electrify transportation and buildings, etc. And they're saying they're going to meet all those needs with renewable power and storage Meanwhile, Ontario is built, why wouldn't we be also following their lead and building out all our new power from renewable sources and conservation? Thanks.
That was excellent, Angela. And that was an excellent point, Elizabeth. And that brings us to what a CCLer would do. So we would think of what is the best question that Elizabeth can ask the finance minister with regards to this point. And I would say, and this is just a brainstorm idea, how about negotiating with Quebec for peak energy and not base energy? How about that?
Okay.
Okay, so
Yep.
then he has to answer that, and then that should help address it a little bit better. What do you think, Angela? And anybody else? She got thumbs up, and I saw Jeffrey go like this and Mary Blake go like this. Okay, so Elizabeth, all good problem solving begins with a good question. So when we're faced with like a roadblock, we try to think of the question to get around it. That's how we operate.
Okay. Good
Cool.
answer. I have
Uh,
one more thing. I just wanted to mention that there was an article in the Economist Science section a little while back about a study that was done on birds and wind power. And it was covering an article that had been in a different publication, and I'm not going to remember all that off the top of my head, but
remember it.
but what they found was there's tons of news about birds being killed by wind power, but it's actually not true. And more birds are killed near the tar sands and other big oil and gas projects. Just there's no news about that. And I could find that reference. I don't think I threw it out yet. And I know I wrote it to someone, so I referenced it in my email. So I could find that if we want it.
Okay, that's a really good little thing to have on all the tables. Mary Blake, do you think we could put out like a one pager trying to find that economist, what's killing birds more so is not wind power, but tar sands, another thing? Like, I remember that article specifically, but I think if we just had like we're gonna have a table with resources, right? And if that was there, like a nice, clear, like one pager of that might, because we don't have that in our booklet. So it's a good one for dispelling myths, and that's one of the things we do. So we could look for that. Elizabeth, if you find anything right now, shoot it over to Mary Blake and I, and we'll try to get something printed up. So I think you have my email, but Mary Blake, if you want to put your email in the chat, that would be great.
I could do that.
And
So
we'll,
it was years ago, but the Audubon Society was a guest on a CCL international call, and they said they supported wind power, but that was quite a while back. But Audubon Society is a pretty pro bird.
I get the economists. There we go. That's all we need to do.
It was in the January 10th. So I've
Yep.
got the email that I sent to my bird friend.
Well, there it is. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that was it.
So Mary Blake, we could put together a nice little one pager or something maybe, and then like just have it as a handout at the tables. Just if you get that, what about the birds? And I'd be like, keep your cat indoors. Stop it
And-
with us.
So let me see if I have Mary Blake in here. I don't think I have Mary Blake's email.
I will
Okay.
put it in the chat.
Yeah, but we've got the article here, and I think we could totally build off of that, build some sort of image. And I have an account actually, so I can actually do it, Mary Blake, if you don't have an account at The Economist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have an account.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I sent you my email anyway because I had summarized a couple points to send
Okay.
to my bird friend, so it might help start.
Excellent. Okay, this is
Can I add?
yeah,
Um,
please.
So
No,
there was a study done for the IESO about a decade ago that looked at all the potential offshore wind sites in the Great Lakes that could serve as power for the Ontario grid. And the conclusion of that report was that we could meet 100% of Ontario's electricity needs just with offshore wind power alone. And we're talking about like 10 kilometers off the shore of Ontario. So they'd be so far off in the distance, you might not even see them. And so there's a huge potential to meet our electricity needs with offshore wind power. And we're not suggesting that we should do it 100% and shut down all the other plants, but there's a huge potential. And the bird associations have come around, and you'll find lots of references with a little bit of research that they claim, you know, that the potential for impacting wildlife and birds in particular is much greater with a climate warmed world, and that wind turbines have become so much more sophisticated in recent years, and where they're sited, like we're always saying that they would have to have an environmental assessment associated with them, depending on where they're sited, to not be in bird areas where they're migrating, and that they get turned off at certain times of the year when the migrations are happening. So there's been lots of improvements in recent years in terms of siting turbines.
I have an idea. See these little snow persons? We have 20 of them. They're going to carry signs, and there's going to be a table all about how birds are okay with offshore wind. They're going to be okay. And then people will be able to take pictures, and nothing captures, like, I don't think people are used to seeing, you know, this sort of, they'll be like, what? They'll take a double take. Okay. So we'll make little signs to you know, dispel some of the myths through these snow purses. And they actually sit, you can't see that, but they sit, and you can stick little sticks on them, and they look really cute as pictures. I mean, they do. I'm humbly say they do, but I think you can get an idea, like the fun we can have. There's different sizes and everything. It'll make people smile. And also when you play, when you're learning, you need way less neurons to be like repeatedly simulated. Like it's like 1,000-fold less than somebody just telling you. Right. So this makes it play, and people will hopefully learn faster. But this is great information, Elizabeth. Thanks for reminding us of that Economist article. I'm going to go look for it as well, so maybe I can actually have it there on hand. Okay.
And Kathy, I put a link to our offshore wind turbine report in the, like, include that as a reference. We've done a whole report on the potential of offshore wind to meet Ontario's electricity needs.
Okay, we'll put a few of those on the table too. So the offshore wind.
Yeah, I'll bring them. I'll bring some copies.
Okay, yeah, if you brought copies, that'd be great. Yeah, bring stuff. Bring stuff to put on the tables. Everybody bring stuff. The more the merrier.
Just if I could add, apropos of that publication, we're going to come to laser talks shortly, which are CCL explanations about various things. I just want to mention that that we've heavily referenced OCAA materials, including that in the laser talks. So you may find some familiar word, but in our laser talks from your publications, but hopefully we've cross-referenced enough of them. There are quite a few of your reports, including that one. You'll find will be hyperlinked in our material,
including the updated cost fact sheet, which we just released a month ago, which compares the costs of wind and solar and storage with gas plants and nuclear. I'll
yeah.
put it in the chat bar.
I believe that's
there.
referenced, but
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
And Tennille, don't worry, we don't need to memorize all of this. And you're going to have a booklet with you, and know that even I refer to the booklet, like, because it's just so much information. Like, just feel free to open it. Don't read from it, but, you know, go, oh, wait, okay, it says right here, you know, like.
Okay, thank you.
You're just the messenger. You're not expected to be the expert, but we're citizens bringing expert information on behalf of, for the greater good, and there's nothing more powerful than that.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I'm sorry
welcome.
for popping in and out. I've got a little puppy here that just needs a little bit of maintenance watch today.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so and then pursuing more conservation, just keeping in mind, we agreed to double our conservation under the UNFCCC, demand management and distributed energy networks. And this is our definition of distributed energy networks, refer to locally owned facilities for electricity generation, control, and storage. A little bit about using this term, methane fired electricity generation. Yes, we know methane, natural gas, as it is called, is not 100% methane, but we decided we'd use the word methane because there's no standard word. Others use fossil gas, but this has become our habit. So they're all interchangeable. And hopefully there'll be some sort of nomenclature like in Sweden, they call it fossil gas. All right. So, but they all mean the same thing. So we're all cool with number 2, and then we'll do number 3. So support the Ontario Energy Board's recent decision recognizing the current energy transition and its implications for methane gas connections to new homes. Does anybody want to expand on that? And just so we can have the context.
I could do that one if you want.
I love it. Keep going.
Well, yeah, I did a lot of work on that one. It took me a while to figure out what it was, but it's the rate setting hearing. So it was the OEB 2022-0200 decision. And as part of a great big amount of other things they were talking about, one of the things was the amortization of new equipment. And so, for example, the one that I'm working on in Sandford, it's probably going ahead in 2026. And that one is part of the phase 2 national natural gas expansion programs, and they're exempt from this. So it's going to be amortized over the next 40 years, which is a long way past 2050 when we're only supposed to be using either no fossil fuel or abated fossil fuel. So it's ridiculous. So the Ontario Energy Board has said, except for those phase 2 projects, anything after 2025 would have to be not amortized over 40 years. In fact, it has to be paid for right in the current year. And some of that's accounting terms, but hopefully that's okay for you.
Well, that's the type of volunteer we attract. So, yeah, anybody else want to add to that?
Yes.
I'll put it in layperson's terms just to cap it. Go ahead, Jeff.
One very recent development yesterday, the day after that decision was handed down in December, the energy minister went bananas and said they're going to overturn it and excuse me, legislatively, and they introduced that legislation yesterday. And it appears that, excuse me, they're going to accomplish the overturning it by, first of all, stacking the OEB board so that they never make a decision like that, but also giving the Ontario government the power to issue directives and policies which are binding on the OEB. And the rate hearing that you're referring to, Elizabeth, I think that it was considered as still in process. It was kind of an interim order. But that the decision from December is going to be caught up in this new process of the directives and policies. So it will be likely reheard. I'm not sure exactly what the mechanics are, but
well, it's just so ridiculous. Is the energy minister going to be there at the breakfast?
He's been invited. He's got a constituent in his riding who is not very happy, and she's very well connected. So, but
and just one thing that I want to add about the chutzpah of the current government, that acts like this have to be posted for comment in the Environmental Bill of Rights registry, and the posting for Bill 165 includes the following: the proposed legislative amendments and potential subsequent regulations in this posting would have no impact on the environment. That's what we're dealing with here.
So does that mean there's room for comments then? So if I know this Bill 165, you said?
There's a 45-day comment period.
Mary Blake, can you send me an email to remind us to put the Ontario comment on that and on that bill?
I sent something around this morning to the organizing commission with a link to the EBR posting.
Okay, then maybe we need to put that in. Okay, we need to put that in the action sheets for March.
Because that's part of our petition. It's in our petition.
In the paper petition that I've put out?
Yeah, the paper petition has to keep the OEB, to not overturn it.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly.
But
So
we still want to try to get signatures on that.
yeah, Elizabeth, here's a key thing about paper petitions. They differ very much from those digital petitions. Digital petitions are not read at Queen's Park. Paper petitions are. Paper petitions, like I've heard they only need 5 signatures at Queen's Park, but we ask people get 30 just to be safe, just so they have a little bit of teeth. And when they're being read repeatedly on the floor of the Queen's Park, they are powerful. I watched MPP Jamie West and MPP Mike Schreiner team tag each other on the floor of Queen's Park reading those petitions last in September. Unbelievable. It creates theater, it creates and it gets entered into the record. So eventually, if we want to sue and they say, well, we didn't know, and we like, oh, yes, you did. You were told repeatedly at Queen's
Right.
Park not to do this, right? It wasn't just so yeah. Those paper petitions really key to get in and getting the right
Okay.
person.
Well, I'm trying to get as many as I can, but I'm glad to know that if I don't make it to 25, I can still hand it in somewhere. And I actually made a second one because Kent Elson from Environmental Defense had given me words to take to council to ask for the National Gas Expansion Program funds to be allowed to be more flexible toward heat pumps and not just for new gas connections. So I just followed your format and put his words in there.
Oh, excellent. Send that to us in Word if you can. We'd love the more petitions we have being read, the better. They're with Earth Day coming up and stuff like that, that will give people lots of petitions to be able to get signed. Excellent. Okay. And I just want to quote Greta Thunberg as we go to number 3. How dare they? Like, wow. That's our money. That's our air. That's our financial system. How dare they? They're playing in a sandbox with their own little rules and it's not fun. And this is recorded. And I'm saying that in a nonpartisan voice, okay? Like it's just ridiculous that they're stacking the cards this way and ignoring the climate and ignoring the financial and the air quality and everything. It's galling. And yeah, but they have to listen to us and they will, and we'll find many ways. So so any last comments, because I'd like to end this in 12 minutes, if I may. This is great. These are our asks. We want all of the above. And we all know why. That's great. Okay, so here is some great stuff from the Ontario Clean Air Alliance. We just put it into one page here just so people could have that information and then they could go to the Ontario Clean Air Alliance website to find more. Thank you, Angela and Jack. And in case you missed it, Alberta declared early fire season, and this was the fire season last year. You know, not to scare you, but to scare you. There is something unexplainable happening. The earth is heating up much faster, and it's probably not just El Nino. We need to familiarize ourselves, and we're not going to talk about this. It's just because I've got you all on the call here. Sulfur termination shock. The sulfur dioxide is a global cooling molecule. It's been pulled out of the humans are no longer producing as much as we used to. It's been taken out of bunker fuels. The coal-fired power plants are slowing down, or closing down. It's been taken out of smelting. I live in the city that was the #1 source for it, Sudbury. And without that global cooling gas in the atmosphere, there is an anomaly of heat being absorbed in the northern hemisphere that we should really be taking a look at. It cannot be explained by any other model. Like we need to be paying attention to this. I think we're in a very much deeper emergency than we imagine, not to scare you, but because all of this is solvable, but we need to be smart. So we're not going to talk about this on Monday or anything, but this graph here, if you're following the data, is scary. Now, the second city is suing the fossil fuel companies. That came out. So the fossil fuel companies are being sued by Puerto Rico, the state of California, and now Chicago under RICO laws in the United States. So the racketeering laws. So, I mean, this is huge that the second city in the United States is doing this. This has powerful impacts on, taking down the fossil fuel industry. And in case you missed it, DSmog blog put out evidence that the fossil fuel industry started sponsoring climate science in 1954. So they've been aware of this for 70 years. And here are just 6 books that have been published. Climate Cover Up by James Hogan and Richard Littlemore in 2009, Naomi Oreskes, Merchant of Doubt in 2011, Dr. Kevin Taft in 2017, Oil's Deep State, and just how horrendous the oil's deep state is in Canada. The New Climate War by Michael Mann 2 years ago, the Petroleum Papers by Jeff Dembecki will just infuriate you, and Fire Weather scares me. And wow, they are just in the industry of creating fires in North America. So anyways, this is in case you missed it, this is really serious. We're here to help. Note that these laser talks, now I'm switching pages, are not meant for people to present monologues. The real purpose is to facilitate discussion. So here's why we want to pause it. And it goes a little bit deeper than what is in the ask. This is how to expand and accelerate the procurement of electricity from renewable resources. This is all the local opposition to new gas plants. Thank you, everyone who's done that. That is fantastic work. Thank you, OCAA, for tracking it all. This is the details of negotiating increased power transfers from Quebec. And you can read these, and we will take moments on Sunday night to discuss these. Pursuing more conservation, demand management, and distributed energy networks. Again, you don't need to memorize it, but reading them can really help you understand. If you need to print your own booklet now, print it, put your notes on the side. I'm doing that. This is about lifting the moratorium off of Great Lakes wind power and some of the data in there, and looking forward to getting feedback on Sunday night. And why Ontario should reconsider its opposition to the OEB, the Ontario Energy Board's ruling with regards to subsidizing the gas expansion into new housing developments as our third ask. And this is the dire picture of climate change in Ontario. This is the director who actually lives of the Climate Risk Institute lives on my street here in Sudbury. Yeah, we've known about this for a long time. And okay, I want to take a moment for this. It often in the controversial subjects will come up. So if you're being drawn into really talk about, oh, we can offset this, or carbon capture and storage and all that, and nuclear too. And I know there's anti-nuclear passion here. Try not to stay on that topic very long and pivot away from it. We're really trying to go after natural gas. And I'm going to have a hard time not talking about nuclear. I can't imagine what Angela's going to be like. So, but these are ways to pivot. And this was a really good chart from the Canadian Climate Institute. Our government is lame here in Ontario. They don't have interim targets. They don't have action plans. They don't have progress reports. They don't have independent advice or assessment. And they're not doing a whole of government approach to this climate action that we need. And this is the lobbying. You can do your own research, read through this, and just know that we have one rule, and it's respect, admiration, and gratitude for service. We also really try not to argue. We do what's called motivational interviewing, which I role model before when Elizabeth made that really good comment about the face power. So our big goal is to find something that we start off with appreciation. How to win friends and influence people is start off with a compliment, like recognize how difficult their work is and something good that they've done lately. This is just a reminder on how to get an appointment. Okay, and then just always phone and email and just keep following up. I mean, sometimes you have to be persistent. Now I'm going to get into the chunk of this. Ultimately, all these roles have to be fulfilled, and people can have more than one of these roles, but you need somebody who's in charge, who will just make sure everything is moving along and that things stay on track. Need somebody who can appreciate something the politician has done recently, somebody who will ask how much time they have, and then and then keep everybody on track. You need a note taker, somebody who's like taking notes, and then you need a discussion. Like you need to get motivational interviewing going. You got to have some discussion going, questions, people really focusing on asking really good questions of the MPP. The asker is the person who actually says the ask that we want, those 3 asks. If there's anything to deliver, like paper petitions, you have somebody that will do that. And you need people for follow-up, and always take pictures. And if you have time, it's always great to have somebody who's an observer, who watches the body language and everything. And motivational interviewing, we stay highly focused on the lobbying asks and use motivational interviewing to uncover how we can move forward together. So we have the permission to get the topic. I like to focus in on how, who, what, when, or where questions. I do find asking a politician a why question can get you a political answer. So I do avoid why questions unless absolutely necessary. The whole idea is to get the other person talking. We want to get to understand why they can't move forward on this file and how we can move forward together. And then it's a basic outline of a meeting, although it's going to be a lot more random, right? Because yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. No, I'll talk about it right now. Generally, we have meetings and we sit down and we have people, they have all these roles, but at a breakfast, it's way more random. Politicians are going to be coming and going. You're going to be pulled from one seat into another. So you got to be a lot more flexible, but we want to make sure that we do have some sort of beginning, middle, and end with these politicians, and beginning, making sure you say your thanks, how much time, intros, and then make sure you get some of those really great motivational interviewing questions out and listening very carefully to what they're saying, and just keep moving that, sorry, it should say MPP forward. And then at the end, just make sure if there's anything that they've given you, like a clarifying, supporting, actually, this doesn't actually make sense, that clarifying, supporting us, but plans for follow-up photo, thank them for their time. And please note, we tell politicians we don't divulge anything, okay? We don't unless they want us to. So please don't post anything online anywhere. Don't write a treat, a whole diary on what you experienced and then post it online without the politician's permission. And then post meeting, like just sit down with who you were talking about and try to get down this, the most important takeaways. Usually there's about 5 to 7, and do as well lobbying, have fun, stay focused, motivational interviewing, these sort of things. Make sure everybody has a role. Don't argue, please. I mean, and I've got to watch that. I'm a boomer and I argue. Okay. All right. And then a question, do you have and then obviously we'll answer that. And then just here's more information. So, and we will go over this a lot more slowly in the hour and a half that we have, the 2 hours that we have on Sunday night. So this will be really drawn through. So thanks for letting me talk for 20 minutes. That must have been excruciating. I hope I was exciting. Yeah, Angela.
Are there meetings happening during the days, or only the breakfast?
So far, we don't know of any meetings happening during the day. Last time we did have 2 meetings during the day, and we are going to be asking people whose MPPs have not confirmed to just phone that morning and try and get meetings. I just send a broadcast email, just keep trying to get that meeting. even if it's, so no, none so far is the answer. That doesn't mean there will be none. And we can try even at breakfast. We're not going to give up. We are persistent and friendly and nice. Any other questions?
Just to say, Kathy, I unfortunately can't attend the meeting on Sunday, so this has been very helpful today.
And thanks for all your work, Jeffrey. He wrote most of the laser talks, and he also, he did so much research, and he wrote, him and Michael and Doug wrote our lobbying asks. And, I left it to them, and when I saw them, they were awesome. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I won't be there on Sunday either, so I'll read this very carefully. So do we each print our own?
I've
booklet?
printed them already, but if you want to print them ahead of time and start taking notes, that's okay.
Okay.
Elizabeth, studies are showing that actually manually like writing things and actually gets it into your brain better. Like this
I
only doing
agree.
it, only doing it digitally just does not let you absorb it. It's very clear this hand movement thing that we got going actually starts activating whole parts of your brain. So reading things online, I think, are not nearly as effective. And as a former teacher and a mother, who's guided 3 girls through school, yeah, my kids who write out their notes, better grades. Anybody else? We're 1 minute over time. I'm going to stop recording. I will stay for a couple more minutes. Do this.
One question I had, Kathy, really quickly is in the period after there'll be a soft start, then speeches, but the period after the speeches, does that have any kind of structure, or will it be kind of fluid?
Everything is fluid from 7:30 to 9 p.m. minus that 15 minutes we'll pause to have structured speeches. So it'll be very improvisational. And then at 9 p.m.
AM?
AM.
AM,
I
sorry.
hope.
And then at 9 a.m., as long as nobody's watching, no, I'm sure we'll be fine. We're going to take about 15 minutes, 20 minutes to go debrief over at the cafeteria, which is just down the hall from the dining hall. That's what we did before. And because there's so many of us, Jeffrey, we might have to go into 3 or 4 tables and have somebody lead, like basically asking everybody to sit down and just share some reflections, 1 or 2 reflections, not go off on a major tangent or rail against whatever, just like, what are some of the big take home messages that you got out of that? So that we can capture impressions and intel. Sometimes we get really good intel, like Elizabeth, your intel about the base power from Quebec is huge. I mean, that really can guide us as one of the hurdles that we have to overcome. So yeah, we're really looking for where are the hurdles, who could be a champion, what should be our next steps, those sorts of things. So we'll have a debrief afterwards.
And will there be, we don't know, we think that the energy minister is not coming, but will there be someone from his staff, hopefully?
As far as I know, we've received no confirmations that anything is happening from his office so far.
And you mentioned there's one constituent that's active, so that's someone who could actually get meetings with him in the riding.
Yes, she is active and she has been trying to get meetings with him.
And these good brochures that Angela sent me, are they coming?
Yeah, I'll bring little stacks of lots of different things to put on the table.
Right, so now we have not got this $5,000 anymore, but are we still handing these out?
Oh, bummer. Right.
Well,
Maybe
what I
should-
was gonna do, I've still got a few that I haven't given away. I was gonna staple my business card on top.
Or what about just crossing off that? But yeah, thank you for alerting me to that. I'll have to look at that. And decide what to do because people are still ordering copies of those. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Brilliant. Brilliant work, everybody. This is how we win. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for all your efforts, and Jeffrey and all the other organizers.